Book of Heaven, Volume 20, Part 3. October 6, 1926. New Martyrdom. One who does not do the divine will cuts off the divine life within oneself. Luisa is deprived of the writings. Jesus consoles her, showing her how everything is written in the depth of her soul. I was all immersed in the intense pain of the privation of my sweet Jesus, and I said to myself, "My Jesus, how can you not have compassion on this little daughter of yours, who feeling, without you, feels life being snatched away from her? It is not just a pain that I feel. That would be more bearable. But it is life itself that I feel missing in me. I am little. I am weak. And if for nothing else, at least because of my excessive littleness, you should have had compassion on this poor little one, who is almost in continuous act of feeling life missing in her, and of taking it back only to feel herself dying again. My Jesus, my love, what kind of new martyrdom is this, never before felt? To die times upon times, and yet never dying. To feel life missing in me, without the sweet hope of taking flight toward my celestial fatherland. Now, while I was thinking of this, my always lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and with a tender tone told me, "Little daughter of my will, courage. You are right that it is life that you feel missing in you, because being deprived of me, you feel the life of your Jesus missing, ending within you. And with reason. Tiny little one as you are, you feel the hard martyrdom of life ending in you. But you must know that my will is life, and every time creatures do not do it, and reject it, it is a divine life that they reject and destroy within themselves. And do you think that the pain, the continued martyrdom of my will is something trivial? In feeling so many acts of life that it wants to make rise in creatures with so much goodness, being cut off from itself, as though by a deadly sword? And in place of this divine life that was cut off within them, they make arise the life of passions, of sin, of darkness, of weaknesses. Not doing my will is divine life that creatures lose. And this is why, since it reigns in you, by depriving you of me, it makes you feel the pain of the many divine lives that creatures cut off from it, to be repaired and compensated in you for the many acts of life that they make it lose. Don't you know that in order to form the kingdom of the divine Fiat, it must find in you as many of its acts for as many as it has lost? And this is the reason for the alternation of my presence and my absence, to give you the occasion to form many acts of submission to my will, to make these acts of divine life that others have rejected enter into you. And then, don't you remember that when I manifested to you your mission regarding the eternal Fiat, I asked of you the sacrifice of suffering as many deaths for as many creatures as were coming out to daylight, for as many as had rejected the life of my will? Ah, my daughter, not doing my will is divine life that creatures reject. It is not like not practicing the virtues, where they reject gems, precious stones, ornaments, garments, that if one does not want them, one can do without. Rejecting my will instead is to reject the means in order to live. It is to destroy the font of life. It is the greatest evil that can exist. Therefore, one who does so great an evil does not deserve to live. On the contrary, he deserves to die to all goods. Do you not want, then, to compensate my will for all these lives that creatures have cut off from it? And in order to do this, you must suffer, not a pain, but a lack of divine life. That is my privation. In order to form its kingdom in you, my will wants to find in you all the satisfactions that creatures have not given to it, all of its lives that it was to make arise in them. Otherwise, it would be a kingdom without foundation, without giving it the rights of justice, and without the due reparations. Know, however, that your Jesus shall not leave you for too long, because I too know that you cannot live under the press of such a hard martyrdom. In addition to this, I felt afflicted, because when the Reverend Father came, who must occupy himself with the printing of the writings on the most holy will of God, he wanted to have all the writings delivered to him, leaving me not even those whose copies he already had. So the thought that the most intimate things between me and Jesus were out, and being unable even to go over again what Jesus had told me about his holy will, tormented me. And Jesus, coming back, told me, "My daughter, why do you afflict yourself so much? You must know that what I made you write on paper, I myself first wrote in the depth of your soul, and then I made you put it on paper. Even more, there are more things written in you than on the paper. Therefore, when you feel the need to go over again what regards the truths on the Supreme Fiat, just take a look into your interior, and immediately you shall see again what you want. And so that you may be sure of what I am telling you, look right now into your soul, and you shall see, all in order, what I have manifested to you." Now, as he was saying this, I looked into my interior, and in just one glance I could see everything. I could also see that which Jesus had told me, and I had neglected to write. So I thanked my beloved good, and I resigned myself, offering all to him, my heart's sacrifice, and asking in return to give me the grace that his will be known, loved, and glorified. October 9th, 1926. The kingdom of the will of God is like a new creation. Delight of Jesus in hearing one speak about his will. I was making my round in the Supreme Volition according to my usual way, and my sweet Jesus showed a globe of light within my interior. And as I repeated my acts in the divine Fiat, it became larger, and the rays that came out of it became longer. And my always beloved Jesus told me, "My daughter, the more often you make your round in my will, in order to repeat your acts, the larger the sphere of this globe of light becomes. And the more power of light it possesses, the more its rays can extend, that must illuminate the kingdom of the eternal Fiat Your acts, fused, dissolved in my will, shall form the special sun that must illuminate a kingdom so holy. This sun shall possess the creative strength, and as it extends its rays, it shall leave the mark of its sanctity, of goodness, of light, of beauty, and of divine likeness. Those who shall let themselves be illuminated by its light shall feel the power of a new continuous creation of joy, of contentment, and of goods without end. Therefore, as my will dominates all the acts of those who live in it, the kingdom of my will shall be a continuous creation. So the creature shall remain under a new continued act of this supreme volition that shall keep her so absorbed as to leave no field of action to her own self. This is why I love so much that the kingdom of my will be known, for the great good that creatures shall receive, and for the free field of action it shall have. In fact, the supreme will is now hindered by their own self, but when it becomes known, its rays, vivifying, penetrating, and full of vivid light, shall eclipse the human will, which shall be dazzled by its refulgent light, and in seeing the great good that comes to it, it shall give freedom of action to my will, giving it total dominion. So, in this kingdom, a new era, a new continuous creation, shall begin for my will. It shall put out everything which it had established to give to creatures, had they always done its will, and which it had to keep within itself for many centuries, as though in deposit, to then release them for the good of the children of its kingdom. After this I continued to pray, but while I was praying, I saw that my highest good, Jesus, was coming out in a great hurry from the depth of my interior, pushing a bundle of light that was above him, and kept him as though eclipsed under it, inside of me, preventing me from seeing him. So pushing it hurriedly, he came out, and I said to him, "My Jesus, what is it that you are in such a hurry? Is it perhaps something that interests you very much?" And Jesus, "Certainly, my daughter, it is indeed the thing that interests me the most. You know, even from within you, I heard the Father who took our writings with him speak about my will to those who surrounded him, with so much love that I felt wounded deep into my heart. So I wanted to come out of you in order to listen to him. Those are my own words that I have spoken about my will, that resound to my hearing. I hear my own echo, and therefore I want to take all the delight in listening to him, and I want to let you take it as well, as a reward for the sacrifices you have made." At that moment, I saw a ray of light coming out of Jesus that extended so much as to reach the place where the Reverend Father was, and investing him, it made him speak. And Jesus was all consoled in hearing him speak about his adorable will. October 12th, 1926. What it means to be firstborn daughter of the divine will. How Jesus feels drawn by his will to visit the soul, disposing her to be with him. I felt immersed in the sea of pain, of the privation of my highest good, Jesus, and as much as I asked for him, making my round around heaven and earth, it was not given to me to find him whom I so much longed for. So the waters of pain, swelling more and more, drowned me with sorrows and with pain. But that pain that only Jesus can give, and knows how to give, to a poor and little heart that loves. And because it is little, it cannot sustain all the immensity of the bitter waters of the pain of his privation. Therefore it remains drowned and oppressed, waiting for him whom I so much yearn and long for. Then, while I was all oppressed, my always lovable Jesus made himself seen in my interior, in the midst of a cloud of light, and told me, "Firstborn daughter of my will, why are you so oppressed? If you think of your great fortune, your oppression shall depart from you. Do you know what firstborn daughter of my will means? It means first daughter in the love of our celestial Father, and first among all to be loved. It means first daughter of grace, of light, first daughter of glory, first daughter, possessor of the riches of her divine Father, first daughter of creation. As firstborn daughter of the Supreme Will, she contains all the bonds, all the relations, all the rights that befit a firstborn daughter, bonds of daughtership, relations of communication to all the dispositions of her celestial Father, rights of possession of all his goods. But all this is not all. Do you know what first daughter delivered by my will means? It means not only to be first in the love and in all the things of her Creator, but to enclose within herself all the love and all the goods of the other children. So, if the others shall possess each one his own part, she, as the firstborn, shall possess altogether the goods of the others, and this by right and with justice, because as firstborn, to her did my will entrust everything, gave everything. Therefore, in her is the origin of all things, the cause for which creation was created, the purpose for which the divine action and love entered the field. She who was to be the firstborn daughter of our will was the primary cause of all the works of a God. Therefore, as a consequence, from her derive all goods. From her do they come, to her do they return. See then how fortunate you are. You cannot fully comprehend what it means to have primacy in love and in all the things of your Creator. On hearing this, I said to him, "My love, what are you saying? And besides, what good comes to me from such great fortune you are talking about, when you deprive me of yourself? All goods convert for me into bitternesses without you. And then I have told you many times that you alone do I want, because you are enough for me in everything. And if I had everything, without you, everything changes for me into martyrdom and indescribable pain. Love, grace, light, the whole creation speak to me about you. They make me know who you are. And not finding you, I become delirious. I go into mortal agonies. Therefore, the primacy, the rights of firstborn, give them to whomever you want. I don't care about them. If you want to make me happy, remain with me. You alone. This is enough for me. And Jesus added, My daughter, I alone must not be enough for you, nor do I want you to say that you do not care about everything else. No, no. If it is not enough for me to give you myself alone without giving you all of my things, if I care that you have the primacy and be the firstborn daughter, you too must care about it. Don't you know that my frequent coming is bound to your being my firstborn daughter? Don't you know that as long as Adam remained the firstborn son of my will, having therefore primacy over everything, I visited him often? My will, reigning in him, administered to him all the manners necessary in order to be with me, as the son who forms the consolation of his father. So I spoke to him as to a son, and he to me as to his father. As he withdrew from my will, he lost his primacy, the rights of firstborn, and along with them he lost all of my goods. And he no longer felt the strength to sustain my presence, nor did I feel drawn by a divine force and will to go to him. So all his bonds with me were broken. Nothing was due to him by right any more, nor did he see me unveiled any longer, but amidst lightnings and eclipsed within my light, that light of my will that he had rejected. Now, don't you know that the primacy that Adam lost as firstborn son of my will has passed on to you, and that in you I must enclose all the goods that I was to enclose in him, had he not withdrawn from my will? Therefore, I look at you as the first creature come out of our hands, because the one who lives in my will is always the first before her Creator. And even if she is born later in time, this says nothing. In our will, the one who has never gone out of it is always first. See, then, you must care about everything. My coming itself is the irresistible force of my will that draws you to me and disposes you. Therefore, I want highest gratitude at your fortune of being the firstborn daughter of my will. I did not know what to answer. I remained confounded, and in my inmost soul I said, Fiat, Fiat. October 13th, 1926. How the divine will shall form the eclipse for the human will. I was fusing all of myself in the holy divine volition, and while I was making my round in it, Doing my acts, my beloved Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, each act, prayer, and pain that the soul makes enter into the light of my will becomes light and forms one more ray in the sun of the eternal volition. These rays form the most beautiful glory that the creature can give to the divine fiat, in such a way that, seeing itself so glorified by its own light, it invests these rays with new knowledges that, converting into voices, manifest to the soul more surprises about my will. But do you know what these knowledges of mine form for the creature? They form the eclipse for the human will. The stronger the light is, the more rays there are, and the more strongly the human will remains dazzled and eclipsed by the light of my knowledges, in such a way that it almost feels impotent to act, and it gives the field to the action of the light of my will. The human will remains occupied within the action of my will, and it lacks the time, the place, to make its own will act. It is like the human eye when it stares at the sun. The strength of the light invests the pupil, and lording over it, it renders it impotent to look at other things. But in spite of this, the eye has not lost its vision. It is the strength of the light that has this power. It takes away any other object from the one who looks at it, and allows him to look at nothing but light. I shall never take free willing away from the human will, a great gift given to man in creating him, that makes creatures distinguishable as to whether they want to be my true children or not. But rather, with the light of the knowledges about my will, I shall form more than solar rays, and whoever wants to know them and look at them shall be invested by this light, in such a way that, eclipsed, the human will shall take delight and love in looking at this light, and shall feel fortunate that the action of the light takes the place of its own, and it shall lose love and delight for other things. This is why I am saying so much about my will, to form the strong light, because the stronger it is, the greater is the eclipse it forms, in order to occupy the human will. Look at the sky. It is an image of this. If you look at it at night, you see it studded with stars. But if you look at it during the day, the stars no longer exist for the human eye. However, they are still at their place in the sky, just as at nighttime. Who had this strength to make the stars disappear, though they are present in the full daylight? The sun. With the strength of its light, it eclipsed them, but did not destroy them. And this is so true, that when the sun begins to set, so do they return to make themselves seen in the vault of the heavens. It seems that they are afraid of the light, and they hide to give field to the action of the light of the sun, because in their mute language they know that the sun contains more effects of goods for the earth, and it is right that they give field to the great action of the sun. And so, as homage to it, they let themselves be eclipsed by its light. But as the eclipse ends, so do they make themselves be seen, present at their place. So it shall be between the sun of the knowledges about the supreme fiat and the human wills that shall let themselves be illuminated by these rays of light of my knowledges. These shall bring the eclipse to the human wills, that in seeing the great good of the action of its light, shall feel ashamed and afraid to act with the human will, and shall give free field to the action of the light of the divine will. Therefore, the more you pray and suffer in it, the more knowledges you draw to be manifested to you, and the stronger the light becomes, so as to be able to form the sweet eclipse for the human will. In this way, I shall be able to establish the kingdom of the supreme fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 20, Part 3. Fiat.